Roughly a year ago, I was walking out of the theater for the 2010's most monumental film, Avengers Endgame. I remember driving home that day and thinking to myself in awe, like, how did we get here? It's been only 7 years since the Avengers changed film history, but that crossover looks like nothing compared to an Infinity War or an Endgame. Superhero movies have just changed so much this decade, and hell, they changed a lot from the days of X-Men and Spider-Man to The Dark Knight. Well, I guess superhero movies have had quite the journey. I mean, we went from the main advertising slogan of Superman the movie in 1978 being, "You'll believe a man can fly," to Endgame 40 years later. You know, that could make for an interesting series for me to do on YouTube. Look at the evolution of superhero stuff going from Superman the movie to Endgame. But I've got so much DCAU stuff left to do and lots of other games I want to get to after that. But wait, what's to stop this little idea from being my big ongoing project after that's all said and done? Well, nothing, I suppose. Hello folks, welcome to the Superhero Movie Retrospective, where I won't be tackling every superhero movie ever made because they're just about as old as the comic book characters themselves, but more like, I want to look back on a lot of the biggest ones, seeing how we went from such humble beginnings where Superman the movie had to prove to Hollywood that superheroes could be a big blockbuster to being like the kind of movie every actor wants in on and having over 3 of them come out every year. Giving my opinions on the discussed movies as well. There are some I won't talk about because I just don't know anything about the characters, like the Blade series or the Fantastic Four stuff. Movies I like that I won't discuss because I don't think they play much of a role in the evolution of the superhero movie, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, or movies I refuse to pay to see again, like, oh, I don't know, X-Men Origins Wolverine. So without further ado, let us dive into discussing Superman the movie. If there's one thing you can say about this, is that it sets the trend that superhero films have got to have an unforgettable main theme that just defines the character. For the first Superman, they spared no expense to make sure this movie was a legit big-budget production. John Williams, who had just done Jaws in 1975 and Star Wars in 1977, was brought in to compose the score, with the theme capturing the character of Superman so well. It's basically what I said in my review of Superman the Animated Series Season 1. A good Superman theme is one that just has this optimistic tone that just puts a smile on your face to hear, with an epic, bombastic quality as the credits roll at the beginning, as movies used to do. As a character, I've spent like, 10 hours discussing Superman in my DC Animated Universe retrospective. Speaking of which, that's another reason I'm happy to be doing this retrospective now, because I have a subscriber base that really likes the superhero stuff now. So this is for you guys while I'm still providing gaming content for everybody else. As I was saying, I freaking love Superman in the DCAU. He was just such a three-dimensional character and I loved every single moment of it. Batman beyond that though, I don't really have much experience with other versions of Superman. Like, with Batman, I have seen almost all the cartoons, watched all the movies, played most of the games, I'm familiar with Batman's big comic moments like Nightfall, Death in the Family, The Dark Knight Returns, or The Killing Joke. But with Superman, I've seen the DCEU stuff, of course, the DCAU goes without saying, and I know some of the Superman comic book events like The Death of Superman, and I have seen Superman 1 and 2 when I was like a little kid, but I've barely seen Superman 3, and I've never watched Superman 4 prior to making this video. So this will be an interesting one for me. I say I love Superman as a character so much, admittedly, just because of the DC Animated Universe, but we'll see if the no personality, no depth argument against Superman holds up, as we will discuss every movie the Man of Steel has appeared in. Right at the beginning, we get this sweeping shot of Krypton as they did a really good job making the place feel alien, as it's made entirely of ice crystals and caverns, all the while having such futuristic technology within. They also paid top dollar to have Marlon Brando play Jor-El, Superman's Kryptonian father who doesn't appear much but got a lot to be in the movie. Jor-El starts the film by sending 3 prisoners, General Zod and his cronies, to the Phantom Zone with this cool, distinct effect. Speaking of effects, I was actually really surprised. The film was marketed around the aforementioned You'll Believe a Man Can Fly in 1978, and I think it has effects that still hold up. It doesn't look like it was made in 2020, mind you, because when Superman takes off, it looks a little weird, but otherwise the flying scenes are so good that you could convince me that this was made in 1995, maybe 2000 even. Making Superman's various powers and abilities look convincing is the linchpin of the whole movie, because if that fails, then the rest of the movie falls apart with it. So it's great that they nailed it so well in the first try, and so many decades ago. So, we all know the basic story. Krypton is doomed to explode, and the Council won't do anything about it, so Jor and Lara El send their infant son, Kal-El, to the planet Earth, where he'll be granted extraordinary abilities in the hopes that he uses them for good. As Kal-El crashes on Earth, being taken in by Jonathan and Martha Kent, becoming Clark Kent, discovering his many abilities, and as an adult moving to Metropolis, which in this universe looks suspiciously like New York City, but I'll take it. getting a job at the Daily Planet with Perry White, Jimmy Olsen, and Lois Lane, who's played really well by Margot Kidder, who, much like in the DCAU, gets into trouble because of her independence and want to get a good story rather than because she's an ordinary damsel. As someone who has spent so much time watching the 2010 superhero movies that are all really freaking long, the pacing of Superman 1's pretty different from what I'm used to, as the film wastes no second of screen time. Like right away, Zod and company are banished, showing us what Krypton tech looks like. Kal-El's then sent to Earth, discovered as a baby, cut to him in high school where he doesn't get the respect he deserves, cut to him showing off with his powers, cut to his father giving him a lecture on that, and then literally his dad dies on the spot. Funeral, Fortress of Solitude, Metropolis, Superman, Lex, climax, ending. This is not a criticism, it's actually pretty refreshing to watch a superhero movie that just comes in to tell the story with a roughly 2-hour runtime. Equally refreshing is that Superman the movie wasn't telling this story as a launching pad for a multimedia franchise. I skimmed through the origin like everyone knows it, because everyone does know it now, but this movie was just sincerely telling the story of Superman to a general audience like never done before. For that reason, when it takes a whole hour for us to see Superman, it's just so charming to imagine viewers in 1978 seeing Clark reveal the supersuit underneath his shirt for the first time. Or just watching this wholesome scene as Lois falls from a helicopter on top of a roof as everyone gathers around and cheers when Superman first appears. It's just a great watch as the theme kicks in at just the right moments. Just rewatching the clips to write this script, I'm just grinning ear to ear because this is such a charming movie. Going into it, I was expecting to appreciate it as a product of its time, but not as a movie I really enjoy. But no, I really loved Superman the movie. Like, every single part of it that was great in 1978 is great about it now, which starts with the sincerity of the storyline. Teenage Clark knows he has so many abilities, but there was nothing he could do to save his father, Jonathan Kent, from dying of natural causes, which is a humbling moment for his character. On that subject, Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent / Superman. I knew going into this that a lot of people still consider his portrayal of the character to be definitive, and I can totally see why just from Superman 1 alone. He shows up at the Daily Planet as Clark and is the most awkward guy in the known universe, and he just nails it. But you can clearly see that he enjoys being awkward as Clark, like it's funny to him to do that. In this moment in the alley, he tries lecturing this crook with the gun.
Now, I realize, of course, that times are tough for some these days, but this isn't the answer. You can't solve society's problems with a gun.
Catches the bullet after Lois attacks the guy and pretends to have fainted. But then as Superman, he's just a confident badass, like right here as the criminal is scaling the side of a building.
Hi there. Something wrong with the elevator?
Confident, not cocky. He knows he has the extraordinary talent to save this kitten from the tree, or stop this plane from crashing, and he just does it all with a smile. The DCAU Superman was definitely informed by Christopher Reeve's top-tier performance here. I'll always be partial to that version, but I do think Reeve set a very high bar for live-action superhero portrayals to come, and will be used as a benchmark to compare actors going forward. On the topic of how complex Superman is as a character, I can see from this movie why people would say Superman lacks dimension, more so than I could after discussing the DCAU, but I thought about it and realized why this probably is. This is just the origin story of Superman, so we have to do what needs to be done in order to tell the story, whereas the DCAU Superman sought 8 straight seasons of action where we can see his humor, his anger, his irrational decisions, his leadership, his optimism, and see those things be challenged by Darkseid, the Justice Lords, or a Cadmus. Where this is just like if we took the last Son of Krypton episode and that was all we had. Which is still great characterization because I love Superman as a character in this movie and that episode, but there's just less room for the dimension you get from 2 full series, if that makes any sense. But what good is a hero without a villain? Gene Hackman plays the greatest criminal mind of our time, Lex Luthor. To bring up the DCAU once more, I'm really used to the underhanded, manipulative Lex Luthor that Clancy Brown excellently did on Superman the Animated Series, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited. But this was years before then. Here, Lex Luthor is eccentric? I mean, he's the kind of character who goes swimming but then demands a lackey put his robe on for him. Or wears a wig to disguise his bald head. However, this doesn't stop him from being a really good villain. Our first introduction to Luthor in this is when a cop is trying to get into Luthor's base from the train station, and Lex presses a button that sends the guy flying onto the tracks to get run over by a train. I was like, Christ, that's a way to introduce a villain. His scheme in the movie is to spend top dollar on the empty real estate in California, a seemingly poor financial decision, but then he's going to alter the military's missile launch sequence so that the missile targets the fault line in California, sinking the populated half of the state, as he would then get billions to populate the part of the area he just bought. Real estate schemes coming from Lex Luthor is again not what I'm used to, but I think it works really well for the movie. as he then uses kryptonite to keep Superman away from the missiles long enough so that at least one of them would hit the target destination before Superman could stop it. But this is where my biggest issue with the movie lies. I thought the climax here was kinda lame. Miss Taskmacher's mother lives in an area where the nukes are gonna hit, so she saves Superman from the kryptonite. He stops one missile, saves a town from the other, but couldn't save Lois from a rather gruesome death scene. Which should be a sad moment because Superman and Clark had really good chemistry with Lois, reminding Superman of his inability to save his father with his powers, and Jor-El's warning of not interfering with human history. But then Superman decides to fly so fast that he reverses the spin of the Earth by such a degree that it rewinds time, allowing him to save the town and Lois. What happened here is that the studio thought the effect of rewinding time looked so cool that they wanted it forced into the first movie when I believe it was intended for the sequel. I just think it cheapens everything because if Superman has the power to rewind time by flying fast enough, that just kind of renders all obstacles going forward obsolete because he can just undo it, if he feels so inclined. It also feels like he just doesn't really learn any lesson by the end because he defied what he learned from Jonathan's death, ignored what Jor-El said, and is rewarded for it. It's not very good writing, all things considered, which is why I think the last 20 or so minutes were the worst part of the movie. However, I love the ending. In the theatrical cut, we don't even see Superman catch Lex, but he brings him to jail, and we get these final lines that just bring such a corny smile to my face because it just screams Superman.
No, sir. Don't thank me, Warden. We're all part of the same team. Night.
And then with this ending shot as Superman flies into the screen with a smile and the music in the background, how could you not love it? For the most part, the critics and the audience loved Superman the movie. Like I just said, how could you not? It's oozing with charm. It's an instant classic, considered one of the best films of the year, and definitely deserves to be mentioned when reflecting on films in the 1970s. I just went over the small gripes I have with the ending, but overall it was a fantastic romp and an earnest, perfect telling of Superman's origin. It just felt so good to watch. I just enjoyed the whole thing from start to finish. On a budget of $55 million, they made it back and then some. This is why I start this retrospective here, because Superman the movie proved something. This was made to be a legitimate movie like any other, and with great casting, good acting, fantastic effects and marketing, and you just have a movie that people want to go see en masse. Hollywood was shown that there was serious money to be made in adapting superheroes for the big screen, especially with all the merchandise you could make from it. It really is an important film in movie history and definitely one of the most important superhero films ever made. When developing Superman, director Richard Donner intended for it to be a two-part epic, with Superman 2 coming right around the corner. However, Richard Donner was replaced with director Richard Lester mid-production on Superman 2, which we shall discuss in a moment. Right at the top, I want to mention that years later, the fans started a massive movement to have Richard Donner's cut of Superman 2 released to the public to experience the film as close as it could have been originally intended, with the cornier elements of Richard Lester's version that appeared in theaters in 1980 completely removed. The collection of the films that I bought only contains the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, which from what I understand is supposed to be the better one, so note that the following Superman 2 review is based solely on the Donner cut, with almost no experience of the original, outside of having seen it on TV when I was like 4 years old. Having said that, let's get into Superman 2. Superman 2, from what I understand, is supposed to be one of the good ones, was it not? Now, I don't dislike Superman 2, but I thought it was a big downgrade from Superman 1. The first movie wasn't a perfect film, but my goodness, it was just such an instant classic with such a great story. Superman 2 is a good movie, but I have a lot of gripes with it. Let's start with the good stuff, though. Christopher Reeve as Superman, Margot Kidder as Lois, and Gene Hackman as this version of Lex are all just so well cast. Like, it's unbelievable just how good these actors do in these roles. They're characterized very well in the sequel, in addition to that. At the end of Superman 1, Lois noticed that Clark Kent and Superman are never in the same spot at the same time, which carries into the sequel as she's determined to prove that Clark is Superman by jumping out of a window.
I mean, that is the single most ridiculous thing about... Lois, what are you doing?
You wouldn't let me die, Superman.
Like, that part is really funny to me, like the absurdity of it's just too stupid not to laugh at. But in a good way, though. But then I love the part where Lois actually does prove Clark is Superman here in the hotel. It really nails these characters down.
I risked my life instead of yours.
Lois, don't be insane.
And don't fall down, because you're just gonna have to get up again.
No, Lois, now don't be crazy now. What?
It is you.
You realize, of course, if you'd been wrong, Clark Kent would have been killed.
With a blank? Gotcha.
Meanwhile, Lex escapes from jail, as I must comment on why this Lex is just so different from what I'm used to. Because he hangs out with such complete idiots. So this brings us to the main plot of the movie. The very first scene is the same as Superman 1, where we see Jor-El sentence General Zod and his crew to the Phantom Zone. We then see that Superman sending the rocket from the climax of the first movie into outer space blows a hole into the Phantom Zone, allowing them to escape. At this point, you must all know that I love when villains leave a strong first impression, like Luthor did in Superman 1. Here, we see these rogue Kryptonians kill a bunch of astronauts on the moon as they discover their new abilities. As villains, Zod and company are pretty iconic in the superhero movie sphere, but they really didn't do a whole lot for me. These characters are basically the same as Jax-Ur and Mala from Superman the Animated Series, and despite how much crap I gave both of their episodes, I think they make for better villains than these guys do. They show up, learn of Earth's lacking powers compared to their own, also they use the Force on this gun, then demand that Earth kneel before Zod. Lex tries to use them to get another real estate scheme going, they fight with Superman, lose, and that's basically it. Zod is not a bad villain, just not one I really thought was all that interesting. Ursa and Nan especially just add almost nothing to the story besides just wrecking people while Zod watches. I know it was 1980 when this movie first came out, but I have to say I think this ending fight scene's also really lame. Like, Superman flying really put the effects to their limit alone. Now that they try to have a fight scene, it's just awkward and slow. But my biggest issue with Superman 2 is the arc that Superman himself goes through. More so how I think it's really poorly paced. After Lois finds out how Clark is Superman, he then goes to the Fortress of Solitude and demands for a way to give up his powers and become a normal human, which for some reason, Jor-El programmed in a way for this to happen, warning that it's irreversible, using concentrated red solar energy as that was Krypton's sun. But I don't get this. Superman's powers cannot be activated with a switch. Like, if you pump him with red solar energy, that will take his powers away, but the moment he's in a yellow sun's rays, they'll bring his powers back. Because Superman's powers aren't a choice, he has them because a yellow sun biologically makes him capable of doing these things. Now, that makes absolutely no sense in and of itself, but that's the internal consistency I'm concerned with here, less than the realism. Once his powers are gone, he loses a fight in a bar, sees Zod on the TV, travels back to the fortress, demands his powers back, and gets them despite the earlier warning. Christopher Reeve sells this very well, but it's just not very good writing again. As this then brings us to the climax, as Superman unfortunately had to be dubbed over by somebody else.
I'm not a coward, Zod.
Or at least, that's what it sounded like to me. I like how the red solar energy stuff is used to defeat Zod and crew, but the ending of this movie is just where I had to stop and be like, really? Now, I mentioned the rewind time effect was intended for this movie, but they put it in the first one anyway because my arch nemesis, Warner Brothers, thought it would be cool. I then jokingly said that this means Superman can just rewind time when things don't go his way, but then they seriously reused the time travel thing at the end of this movie as Superman makes it so that Zod never escaped the Phantom Zone, Lois never found out he was Superman, and the whole thing just never happened. As Clark beats up the guy who beat him up when his powers were gone, ending the movie on the same shot as Superman 1. Like, yeah, this was how this movie was supposed to end, but once you use that effect in the original, you can't just use it again, that's cheap. Any obstacle Superman faces in the next 3 movies is pointless, because he can just rewind time however he sees fit, still going against Jor-El saying he can't interfere with human history. It basically renders Superman 2 as completely non-canon because the whole movie never happened. I don't understand why he would rewind time anyway, like, I don't think there's harm in Lois knowing the truth, and Zod is already defeated, so what's the point? I just thought this ending was really bizarre. And that's Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. Again, I've not seen the theatrical Richard Lester version since I was like a toddler, but if that's better in any way, let me know. I'm curious to see the original now, after seeing this. Superman 2, like I said at the top, is a good movie. I enjoyed watching it a great deal, I really did, and it proved to be a success at the box office. Not quite like Superman 1, but still a very huge success. I think this movie is just flimsy in ways that Superman the movie wasn't. But I'm willing to take the good with the bad to enjoy a movie that's definitely worth enjoying. So if you haven't seen any of these movies and just want to watch the good ones, Superman 2 is definitely on that list, just not as good as the first one. Which is a shame because I certainly didn't think the original was unbeatable. But I am afraid it only gets worse from here. Richard Lester really proved himself to the studios with the success of Superman 2, so we got to take full control over Superman 3. Let's see how it turned, and this movie sucks. Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. Superman 3 isn't very good. But watching it in full for the first time was just so awful. Because this movie commits the single greatest sin I believe a movie can commit. Being straight up boring. Like, you watch this movie and you feel like they're completely making this story up as they go along. Like, it just has no reason to exist. Richard Donner intended for Superman to be this 2-part epic, with the origin story in Superman 1 and the battle with the Kryptonians in Superman 2. You get to Superman 3 and like, what is this movie even about? Other than making Warner Brothers as much money as possible. Alright, let's start with the good stuff. Christopher Reeve is just excellent as Superman. This was, is, and always will be the case. Him being good in this movie and his connection with his childhood friend Lana Lang is probably the only thing about this movie I'm going to be remotely capable of remembering in 10 days from now. The special effects have bizarrely gotten both better and worse than the previous films. Like, they finally made it so that Superman's takeoff isn't so odd looking, but while flying in the city, it just looks so fake. And yeah, that's about all I have for the positives. Everything else is either bad, odd, or completely forgettable. As I alluded to before, Clark Kent has returned to Smallville for the class reunion and meets up with his old friend Lana Lang, who has her share of issues being a single parent. Meanwhile, a rich guy not named Lex Luthor comes up with a real estate scheme and other ways to get money. As this movie's main selling point was the appearance of Richard Pryor. Lots of Richards in these old Superman movies. From what I can tell, Pryor was supposed to be a comedian. I say that because I've never seen him in anything else, but his role as Gus in Superman 3 is just so dull. Like, every moment with him that was supposed to be funny, I think, it just comes off really awkward. Watching him, I feel like you can hear him trying to make this stuff funny, but it's not.
The clouds, it was him, with his cape flapping in the...
Like a lot of the stuff I laugh at, I'm doing so ironically, as Superman 3 definitely tries to ramp up the antics from the previous films. Take whatever corny elements were in Richard Lester's version of Superman 2 and multiply that by infinity and we have Superman 3. Take the opening credits for example. In both Superman 1 and Superman 2, you get this epic space scene as the names of the actors and other crewmen come on the screen with bombastic fanfare. Here, when I saw the credits come up in the middle of this shot, I knew something was wrong. They often say, never judge a book by its cover, but if that cover just tells you to run away screaming, listen to it. Going off the intro alone, I knew Superman 3 was gonna be something else. It's a continuous, like, 4 straight minutes of slapstick. My jaw just hit the floor watching this madness unfold. Then wind-up penguins are escaping, running into bombs that are just lying in the street as a blind man loses his dog and takes up this machine by accident. This guy falls into a pit, groceries are falling, paint cans land on this guy's car starts flooding. Like, what is happening? What did this city do before Superman showed up? Ending as this happens. Yikes. So it's already off to a poor start, but then Gus, the character established as being basically unemployable, lands a job as a programmer, doesn't like his paycheck, and then uses the computer to steal thousands of dollars in company money as his boss decides to use his skills to help him make even more money. But Superman stops their weather machine scheme, and so they devise the dastardly plan to create kryptonite. But unfortunately, kryptonite has an unknown element that takes up 57% of its composition. So Gus just uses tar instead, gives it to Superman, it seemingly doesn't work. But no, this alternate kryptonite has the power to make Superman a complete jackass, with the colors of his costume dulling to go along with it. But you may be thinking, an evil Superman might be an idea worth exploring, and you might be right. But no, this Superman decides he's done with that hero stuff, so he decides to pull ridiculous pranks, like straightening the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and putting out the flames of the freaking Olympics, and shattering a bar's bottles with nuts. Until Lana's son begs Superman to return to normal, giving us this fight scene between Clark Kent and evil Superman, as now evil Superman just gets an over-the-top accent.
You always wanted to fly, Kent. Now's your chance.
I know a lot of people like this part, but I just didn't. I thought it was really awkward. By this point in the movie, it's been the longest hour and a half I have ever spent in recent memory, with 30 minutes to go, which dragged on for an eternity. Because by the way, earlier in the movie, Gus demanded a computer that could literally do anything, as the computer is the final action set piece. Superman flies towards the Grand Canyon base, and I was expecting, you know, footage of Superman to come on the screen, but no! What is happening in this movie? Gus tries to shut the computer down, but then the computer comes to life and turns everything into a cyborg, seals Superman in like plastic wrap, siphoning power from all over the world. At this point, I seriously wanted to shut this garbage off, but I kept going. As Superman decides to let Gus off the hook despite being a criminal who's stolen thousands of dollars, ending the movie on the final shot from Superman 1 again. Well, after he re-bends the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Which begs the question, why didn't he just rewind time to make sure none of this ever happened? I mean, he can do it at will, as Superman 2 established. Ah, forget it. I hated this movie, and it's because it's slow, boring, nonsensical, corny, awkward, pointless, padded out, and it's just everything I want movies not to be. Making Superman 2, a movie I thought was just good, looked like The Dark Knight. And it got the reception I think it deserved. People just saw Superman 3 as a mockery of the series that has been so awe-inspiring before. But what I think is significant about that is the critics saying this sort of thing because Superman 1 and 2 showed the world that you can just make a great movie out of a superhero, so that bar has been set. With Superman 3 falling so far from that, audiences are just not going to accept this quality, even back in 1983. But Superman 3 still made enough money to keep the superhero train chugging for another sequel, the infamous Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. As if it couldn't get any worse. To be honest, I almost feel bad for dunking on Superman 4. It's the perennially low-hanging fruit of the entire superhero movie genre, next to Batman and Robin, I guess. Superman 4, from a production standpoint, is an absolute disaster, getting an abysmal response from audiences and critics, as the Superman franchise was sold to a completely new company that didn't put the proper care into the budget or the script, leading to the worst part of this whole movie, the effects. The special effects in The Quest for Peace are disgustingly bad, constantly reusing the same flying effects, and when they aren't doing that, it just looks completely fake. Like, you can just see how plastered on these backgrounds are, it just looks so awful. I say I feel bad for making fun of this movie because nobody sets out to make a bad movie. This just happens because of the production problems this film went through. However, we can't review products based on intentions, it is what it is. And this movie, oh, it's bad. From a plot perspective, I actually found Superman 4 to justify its own existence a lot more than Superman 3 did. Yeah, honestly, I enjoyed watching this movie more than Superman 3, where I was dying for it to end from the opening credits. In The Quest for Peace, Superman has decided to rid the world of all nuclear weapons, giving a speech in front of the UN, which a lot of the folks in the comments of my Justice League Season 1 review were wondering why I didn't bring up the homage to Superman 4 that the debut episode, Secret Origins, had. That was because I've never actually seen this movie before, so I didn't feel like speaking on the matter back when I wrote that video. But seriously, seeing Superman walk with the crowd towards the UN, I loved it. It just felt very Superman-like, which is an all-around good feeling vibe. Superman does start to feel a little stressed out as this happens.
Clark? Clark? Clark, things aren't that bad! Clark, stop!
What the heck? He literally rewinded time to take her knowledge of him being Superman away, but he does the reveal again? Only for Lois to say that she remembers everything that happened in Superman 2, even though he literally rewinded time to where it never happened. But Superman has a solution to this problem. He gives Lois a memory-wiping kiss, and what the? It's in this movie where they just make up powers every 2 seconds. Like in the climax, if you could call it that, the Great Wall of China is damaged, and Superman uses his Great Wall of China rebuilding beam to put it back together. Like, what? Thankfully, Lex Luthor is back in this one, so at least his performance is good and memorable, even if the attempts at humor still fall completely flat on their face like they did in Superman 3.
Say, you're fired! If you want a reference for work, forget it!
Lex's plan here is to steal a strand of Superman's hair from a museum and use it to create Nuclear Man, who puts Superman out of commission for a bit, but he comes back thanks to Lois. And a remaining Krypton crystal, even though Superman 2 happened. Oh wait, no it didn't. He actually rewinded times where it didn't happen. Never mind. Ugh, this movie is so bad. Like, I feel like they were trying to tell some kind of story here that Superman 3 wasn't, and it's also not as long as Superman 3, mercifully, but this movie just turns into complete nonsense by the end, like the god-awful fight with Nuclear Man on the moon. Superman 1 did the right thing by not having a major battle sequence, because I think the one in Superman 2 was weak, Superman 3's was just awkward, and this one is horrifically bad. But then, the new love interest gets captured by Nuclear Man, and as she's brought into outer space, Superman takes Nuclear Man's powers away by moving the moon out of its orbit to block the sun, saving the girl as he flies her back down to Earth even though she would have died like 5 minutes ago the second she left the atmosphere. As the status quo returns by the end of the movie, with the same ending shot as Superman 1 for the 4th and final time. I spent less and less time on each of these movies because what do you even say about Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, that hasn't already been said? This film was just so stupid and terrible that it completely killed the legitimacy of the superhero movie franchise. Like, Superman 3 is the kind of bad sequel that I think it can come back from because the problems with that movie are embedded into like the lame writing. However, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, no, just no. I may have enjoyed watching it more than Superman 3, but a movie with production values this bad and, well, everything else sucks about this movie, it It just shows that the Superman routine had run its course by the time this movie came out in 1987, making you look back on how great Superman the movie was and just wondering how we got to this low of a point. Production companies, disinterested writers, and low budgets are the answers to that question. And it's a shame, as the world would not see another Superman film for almost 20 years after this point. You probably saw this coming, but what's the highlight of Superman 4? Well, that would be Christopher Reeve and his final performance as Superman. To reflect, I said in Superman 1 that they couldn't have found more perfect casting, and that still holds true. He is still in the conversation of best superhero movie portrayals over 40 years later. He set a really high bar. But after his role as Superman, Christopher Reeve was the victim of a terrible accident that left him paralyzed from the neck down for the rest of his life as he sadly passed away in 2004. I didn't just talk him up as such a great Superman because of how he was in the movies, but it's because Christopher Reeve is an inspiring human being. When you suffer a life-altering injury like that, you really have to think about whether or not you want to keep going on with life. But with the support of his family, he did keep going, dedicating the rest of his years raising awareness for the disabled. He was such perfect casting as Superman because that was the man he was at the very core. The Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 was released to the public in 2006 and opens with a line that just captures the reverence the fanbase has for the man better than I ever could. This picture is dedicated in loving memory to Christopher Reeve, without whom we would never have believed that a man could fly. But to get back to the superhero stuff, you might think that a movie as bad as Superman 4 would kill the idea of superhero movies being big bucks. Maybe Superman 1 was a fluke. Well, thankfully, taking superhero movies seriously on the big screen would get another chance just 2 years after Superman 4 crashed and burned, because the superhero movie retrospective has only just begun, and in the next episode, we shall dance with the devil by the pale moonlight. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.